Yes, guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson Football Channel. We have got Younes on, the 3 More Points podcast. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, geez, you look at the length of the video and it might be double, might be triple the length of 6 things we learned. Do we really want to sit here and listen to anybody talking about Chelsea Football Club right now? But is it time to sack Graham Potter? I want to deep dive this today with a man who has been absolutely killing the YouTube scene over the course of the last couple of years, for many, many years, in fact. But on the new Younes Talks Football channel, we welcome the big man himself on to the pod. Younes, mate, I'm sure you're not feeling that good, but is there any positivity that you can bring me on a Friday night where I've got a glass of water in my hand and I've got Discord open instead of being down the boozer?
I mean, firstly, it's sunny over here, so that's a positive. I've got water too, so that's a positive.
Yeah,
and
lovely.
We've not gone insane yet, so 3 positives. But yeah,
Positive. That's good enough for me. That's a good start.
Would
That's
that
a
be
good
a
start.
good start?
I asked on Twitter. Yeah, we're starting okay. We're doing good. Let me just turn you up a little bit so I can hear you a bit better. That's better. I think I've got you now full volume. I put a little poll out on Twitter. I'm going to open it up now. You guys are probably going to see it somewhere on the screen. If blame is necessary, then who is most culpable? At the time of me looking at this, we've got 9,134 votes, which is nearly 10,000. Majority Chelsea fans. 15% think Graham Potter is culpable, which, to answer the question in the title of the video, means he probably shouldn't be sacked. The players get 58%, and then the Roman to Todd transition is nearing 27%. I think to open it up and to round this one to like a point where I think at the moment there are a lot of people that are easy to jump the gun and say that Graham Potter is finished. I think that the way my perception of this has come across in the last few videos has been that perhaps I do think maybe he is done. Maybe he was never right in the first place. But I think a lot of the people at the moment who have an opinion on Chelsea are not really taking all 3 of these different stakeholders of the club into account, in the sense of there is a lot of it which is down to injuries. I think the 11 that we could field from injuries is significantly better than the 11 that we've been fielding week on week. But Graham Potter, is there anything you think he could immediately, despite all of the bad luck or whatever you wanna call it, is there anything that you think he should be doing immediately that he's not been doing, or that he has to start doing against Palace on Sunday?
I mean, firstly, for that Twitter poll, I think you need a 4th option of all of the above, as you mentioned, because they all have a part to play into why Chelsea are the way that they are at the moment. But yeah, I think a lot more people would not, because as I've just said, Potter's got a part to play. The players have a part to play. This transition has a part to play. I think the ones that are doubting Potter now, myself included, I think a lot of those people would have considerably more patience and time for the project, or time for the process, or whatever you want to call it, if you saw the fundamentals and the basics on the pitch, because it's not like we've had to turn to a complete academy lot. You're still playing players here that are quite established, that should be at a certain level. And even on a bad day, or even when they're not motivated or they're not disciplined or something, they should still maintain, a minimum, a basic requirement, right? For them to be able to do that, there needs to be a plan. And there needs to be a way of playing. There needs to be something. I remember when Arteta first got the job at Arsenal, and everyone immediately was thinking, oh, okay, look, Arsenal have become a little bit more defensive. All of a sudden, they're looking to try and play out the back, even though they haven't got the tools. But they're trying to do that. They seem to be parking the bus a little bit more. They seem to be containing a little bit more, closing the lines. They're not playing as progressive as they used to, especially under Wenger. That was the beginning of Arteta. Now you look at Arteta now, but you knew what was being done, and you could see what the plan was. You could see, even if people disagreed with it, but you knew. Under Potter, we've not got a clue. I don't have a clue what we're trying to do. I don't have a clue what's asked of these players. I struggle to think that players of a caliber, for example, like a Kovacic, can no longer pass a ball. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And this is the problem. It's got to a point that's ridiculous. Now it's not even I'm worried. It's just getting into a bit of a joke. It's gone so far down that Yes, the players should not get away with this, 100%. But in terms of being able to kick a boot up the backside and to try and establish a way of playing, give us something. There's none.
Yeah, I feel you. I think the most frustrating thing is when it comes to like the question again, is it time for Chelsea to sack Graham Potter? I think as Chelsea fans, we've been so blessed over the years to have always had in the back of our minds that we wanted like a dynasty manager. I've spoken about it. I think we've even spoken about it here on this channel as well. About those like when Mourinho came back, there was just like this hidden desire that we all had in there that maybe this was going to be the return of the special one and he would actually be the special one to deliver like an Alex Ferguson reign kind of thing. And I think over the years, and especially when Tuchel was fired, I gave up on all of that. But I know in the process of giving up on all of that, Potter is being brought in with that kind of ideology and like staple format for the way that the club is structured and sustainable. That's what Potter's been brought in to do. So I think, as you're saying there, like, yes, the players need to be blamed because this has been a recurring theme of Chelsea players, not necessarily, I don't want to say downing tools, because I don't necessarily think in this case players have downed tools. I think at this moment in time, what Thomas Tuchel said about these players, saying, well, we got beat 4-0 by Arsenal in pre-season because we've got the same players. I think as a result of those kind of comments, Boehly in the back of his mind was simply waiting for the Zagreb game to be that one game where the axe can come down, chop off Tuchel's head in proverbial terms, and then bring in that manager who isn't going to be like, well, we don't have the players, and when he gets stick from the fans like he's been getting now, when the players seem to be looking around like Lewis Hall putting this on social media. I mean, he's an 18-year-old kid. He's being thrown in there after we spent hundreds and hundreds of millions because right now Chelsea can't deliver anything on the pitch. So I think maybe like after the game, it's always easier to blame the manager because that's what we've become accustomed to. That's what we over the years have had to just accept is going to be the way of it. But I don't know about you, from like an emotional standpoint, I don't feel as though I've ever felt so dejected, but not only dejected, but I'm looking at the quality of the players that we've got, and I'm just looking at where Chelsea can compete on any different level, and I'm thinking in my head, is it all Graham Potter? Like, we're talking about this plan that we want to see, but like, are these players actually capable, apart from in a knockout competition, are they capable to actually deliver something sustainable on the field in terms of style and competitiveness week on week? I don't know if we are.
Not on a week-on-week sustainable level, as you just said, no. They have quality to make an impact immediately, I would say, and some of these players are Champions League winners. So, you know, that's already been tested and proven. But to maintain, to be consistent, and as you said, to be sustainable, which is the model that we're trying to find, no, they're not. And this is why in the short term, I'm shocked at how far it's dropped. 7 losses out of 9. Even with the injuries that we have. But the players, as I've said, that are available, that are playing, you know, as I've said, we've not just turned to a bunch of kids. There are established footballers in that team. On a short-term level, this is why I'm shocked. But if we're looking forward, absolutely know that this squad isn't good enough. 100%. 100%. My worry is, do we have the right person in charge to lead us on that journey? And to be able to not just get the talent, but know how to use them. Because there have been instances of managers in the past that are able to pinpoint the correct players and bring in players that fit a profile, and it's a beautiful requirement, right? It's AVB was a great scout. You know what I mean? Lampard picked up a couple of good signings, let's be honest. But when it comes to actually knowing how to use them, it's a different ball game. And this is where I have concerns. I'm not saying that it's the right move to just, you know, eliminate Potter right now, because you have to be wise. You have to be, you know, logical. Who are we going to hire immediately now, you know, unless there's a plan in place. So you got to think about that. But if we are thinking long run, is this going to get worse? Are we going to get into a dangerous situation? And part of that is because these players, yes, a lot of them are not good enough. So my idea is, no matter what happens with the managerial situation, even if it gets to a really bad point and it means, okay, look, there's always a red line. In business, there's always a red line. I think these owners definitely have some sort of a red line. If we were to start scrapping the relegation positions, I think at that point it gets serious. No matter what happens, though,
I can't even hear you say that without being like, surely we
without
can't
a joke.
be scrapping. That's the thing, bro. It's like, is this a joke anymore? Like, are we actually talking
not.
about this? Like, I saw a stat. It's like, when Blackpool got relegated in the 2010-11 season, after 18 games, they'd won 7, drawn 4, lost 7, and they got relegated. And at the moment, if you look at the recent results, it's like, it's not even like we're getting beaten and playing great football and scoring 3 but conceding 4, and then you can be like, well, at least we scored goals, but we just got to hope we can defend at some point in the near future. We don't score anything. Not only do we not score anything, but we hardly even get shots away. I think it's important to bring up the reference you made to AVB there, because I think when we look back to when Chelsea appointed AVB before we won our first Champions League, I think Chelsea were trying to get AVB in after that period under Ancelotti where we had that 6 or 7 years, not all under Ancelotti of course, but we were very successful under Ancelotti. And then I think AVB comes in, he's kind of like this Sigma male figure, bit of a lone wolf, bit of a maverick, comes in, thinks he's got everything it takes to be able to manage to put it into like psychology terms, a load of alphas. You've got like your Drogba's, your Czechs, your Terrys, your Lampards in there, alpha male leaders in a dressing room that also had a lot of other leadership kind of style of players, but there was level heads in there, there were Chelsea heads in there, whereas you compare that to now, and I'd say that Graham Potter is the complete opposite of an AVB, in the sense of Potter isn't coming in thinking, right, I'm the dog's bollocks, I've got all of this that I'm going to succeed with, and if nobody wants to play for me, then, well, it's all on them, which is a bit like how AVB kind of bowed out. But when you compare those leaders and those players, so you want a manager who can lead, you want a coach who can lead from the sidelines, lead in the dressing rooms, who people look up to, which people didn't with AVB. And I just wonder with Potter if what worked for Chelsea in the past with those leaders on the pitch, we actually had players who were selfless. We had players that were playing for the badge. Whereas if you look at that team meeting that Graham Potter had the other day, he's talking with Azpilicueta, brilliant Chelsea captain, but I think we probably both agree he's done on the pitch.
Yep.
Jorginho, who is like, I don't know which way to tilt my head when it comes to him. Kovacic and Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva probably won't be around for much longer if we're realistic. And Mateo Kovacic, like, out of nowhere, has kind of become a senior head. But it's like, if I were to say to you, like, pick 5 senior players in this Chelsea team who you think are leadership style players to be able to help a manager, in this case Graham Potter, through a tumultuous period of time for the club, like, when you compare what AVB had to deal with as like this, I'm the best kind of guy coming in and then failed. Graham Potter's failing, but is it because those leadership players just aren't the DNA of Chelsea anymore? So as fans, do we need to taper back expectations because we're not at the same level as we once were? So should we be expecting Potter to be doing anything other than he's getting out of this team right now?
Well, this is the thing. It's like a classroom full of bad kids. Are you just going to let them just run out of control? Or are you actually going to try and put your foot down on something? It starts there. If not, it's just going to run out of control, which is what seems like right now. You're right in referencing AVB and you know those leaders and those players that we had, that spine that lasted 10 years, right? And they could have played without a manager if they wanted to. I mean, to be honest, we won the Champions League under Di Matteo technically without a gaffer. Di Matteo just done the one thing that AVB didn't, which is bring those lads back together, which is get the group back together, and you guys go and play the football. That's basically what he done, and we won the Champions League. So you're right, the circumstances are different. Graham Potter, I feel like on a footballing level, I say might, because again, even here, we're not seeing any sort of style, any sort of way, but maybe if he did have players of that leadership quality, then there wouldn't be he wouldn't have to do that much work in order to get them to play the way that they need to play. Do you know what I mean? When you're looking at, say, if Graham Potter had a Drogba, Lampard, Terry, Cech, all of them lot, you don't tell them how to be leaders or how to be, you know, how to go in and give your all and show those qualities. You just show them, look, I kind of want you in this position. I want you running into that space. I want you doing this. That's basically it, right? You show them that on a footballing level and that's it. Maybe he'd be more comfortable with that. But truth of the matter is, we ain't got that. We haven't got players of that caliber.
Yeah.
We haven't got players that can dig in that deep. A lot of these players are soft. I think a lot of these players can be good players, but a lot of these players are soft, and it's like they don't push themselves to that level. But we need someone that's going to attempt to push them to that level and to show the example and the standard. And this is where I'm saying it's not one or the other. It can be everything. It can be everyone.
It's a catch-22. Because then it kind of comes to the point where it's like, surely then Boehly, in terms of recruitment, like, I think at the minute, like, people are giving Boehly a lot of stick for, like, the scattergun. That's the phrase I've been hearing a lot. Like a scattergun transfer approach, spending lots of money, buying these players, that players. And as much as, like, when I made my video for 6 Things We Learned for the game against Fulham, basically I was just asking for Potter's head. But after spending the day, like, looking through Chelsea Twitter, watching other people's videos and their opinions on the man, not even just Chelsea fans, but, like, football fans in general, maybe if we're talking about the players, blaming the players, then surely with the recruitment that we're seeing right now from Todd Boehly, yes, we're investing a lot in the future, but maybe the plan right now doesn't need to be just let's just buy a load of 21-year-olds, let's use this new scouting algorithm, this new scouting network that we've got and buy an 18-year-olds from Vasco da Gama. Maybe, instead of that, Chelsea don't need to just buy 7-8 players to rinse out a load of players from the current first team. Is it maybe we need to go out there and buy 3 players across maybe defence, midfield, attack, or goalkeeper, midfield, attack, whatever, who are actual leaders, who are more experienced? Maybe it's just at the moment too many youngsters coming in, and do we just have to accept that if we're going to do it that way and we're just going to buy youth players, is it going to be that Chelsea just have to accept that for 3 or 4 years we might not even get European football? Can we accept that as Chelsea fans? Can you accept that, Younes?
This is the thing. Personally, no. Maybe Todd Boehly and everyone in charge now thinks that's okay. But they'll realise soon, if they haven't already, if they haven't realised the industry that they've come into, that that's not going to be acceptable. And even for them and their profit margins and everything that comes along in the world of football that we know, many owners are in it for, they'll realise without those perks, they're going to be missing out on a lot. This is why I'm saying there's always a red line. There's always going to hit a certain level. It will only go down so far before action is going to be taken, because that's just the nature of the game. You can look long term and think, oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to get loads of these players. We're going to help get loads of 20-year-olds and 19-year-olds and 18-year-olds, and we're going to become the next Barcelona, right? You can think that. But the truth of the matter is, if you're not planning for the short term, you can't plan for the long term. And this is where Thomas Tuchel was correct in what he said in terms of a process and, looking for a project, is in order to have faith in a process or a project, whether you like it or not, there needs to be results. And not results as in we're winning every single week, but there needs to be a trajectory, at least a little bit, going upwards. Or, it's not plummeting into free fall, basically, in order for you to have faith in it. If not, you're going to start asking questions. And I don't know if the new owners are honestly just thinking on a business level, and they've not thought about this on a football level. And this is where maybe getting rid of everybody at once, as soon as they came in through the door, was maybe just a bit too crazy. Because there's no one left from the old regime that can at least give a handover or give a transition to these new guys and show them how things were running properly. And maybe start looking at the faults from there and take your time. They've come in and sacked everybody and thought, we're going to do it our way now. And maybe we're paying the price.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like if you take the person in England with the highest IQ and he sits in a classroom with all of his friends and he's top of the class, but then you send him to China and ask him to take all of the exams and write it all in Chinese, all of a sudden, like, that guy is no longer the smartest in the room. And if you compare Chelsea to other football clubs right now in the world, we've kind of just, like, taken our A-star students, which was the way the club was ran successfully by Roman Abramovich. We have just removed all of those perks of being the smart kids, sent them to another country and asked them basically to write all of their papers again and get the same grades. And I think that's why I'm starting to lean. The more we talk, the more we're talking, the more I'm starting to lean towards what can we expect anything other than this right now, because we've got an entirely different. There's a whole different layout at the club from top to bottom, to the point where everyone's kind of learning a different language. They're learning to talk to one another. They're learning to operate with one another. And as we're all trying to do all of this behind the scenes, there are still 90 minutes twice or three times a week that we've got to go out and do the job that we should all be getting paid for, which is 3 more flipping points on the table, hopefully every time we step out on the field. But I just think as a result of all of that, like, I don't think there is a club in the Premier League, other than us, who would look at the recent form of Chelsea Football Club and not even be remotely contemplating sacking the manager. Because, like, let's be real, we were champions of Europe. We're still champions of the world, I believe. Real Madrid haven't played their World Cup yet, have they?
No, they haven't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, apparently we're the world champions still. And, like, you look at this form, we've lost 7 of our last 9 games. We've scored 6 goals in the Premier League in that time. We've nearly scored on average a goal a game. That's outrageous. I think any other club would be sacking the manager, and if they're not sacking him, they're giving him an ultimatum. At the moment, it looks as though we've just got to nod our heads and be like, all right, another one. Fulham, it's okay. We're bottom. We're out of the top 4 in West bloody London nearly.
Yeah,
I didn't even know there was that many clubs in West London, mate. We're bottom.
We
are
bottom
of the league.
We are, and it's insane when you put it like that. It's insane. Our goal difference is 0 right now. That tells you everything you need to know. Our goal difference is 0. We've scored as much as we've conceded. Look, this is where you look at other teams, even teams that we faced. Fulham yesterday, Marco Silva, right? And the way that Fulham are playing with the quality that they have, which on paper is not much. We made a 35 or 6-year-old Willian, I forgot how old he is, look like he was 25. Do you know what I mean? And that's not discredit to Willian, but you look at their other players and they're well gelled. They're moving correctly. There's a system. There's something in place. You don't need a miracle to get a bunch of players at the level that we've got to be able to do the basics, just the basics, or to have some sort of cohesion. Credit, you know what? Frank Lampard came in and everything was a bit of a mess with the transfer ban. And he had to turn to the kids. And even with Frank Lampard, who we criticised for his management, we still ended up top 4. You know? Tuchel coming after the mess that Frank Lampard had at Chelsea had an impact immediately with a lot of these players that we have now, and boom, we ended up winning the Champions League. Now, I'm not saying we have to do the same thing, but I'm saying an immediate impact on a managerial level is there. We're not seeing anything right now, and this is what's scary. And as I've said, a lot of these players have shown their true colours, and in the summer, I think a lot need to be flogged, and we need to start shifting a lot, but we need to look all over the place, and that's including the new owners as well, because there is an element of me beginning to think that maybe they don't quite know what they're doing, at least in the short term. I think they've got a long-term vision, but that's all they're looking at, and they couldn't care less about anything else.
I don't know if Graham Potter's the right man for that long-term vision. No. I think the problem with Boehly is he's got a stick or twist here, because the plan was to come in and try and make Chelsea a more sustainable club. I think everybody kind of knew that the Abramovich way was... It was on a time frame, regardless of whether or not we agree with the way in which that era ended or not, is kind of by the by. But I think everyone knew at some stage or another there's only enough footballing managers in the world of that calibre that Chelsea could have cycled through before everyone just starts saying, you know what, as much as I might get paid 20 million in compensation, I don't really want my name tarnished as a result of taking this job. But I don't know if Graham Potter is the right man in the first place. I remember when... Tuchel was getting sacked, or when everyone was starting to think maybe Tuchel was going to be sacked. I know it was a big shock, but I mean, Tuchel's last 18 games, I think, is a 44% win percentage, and it's been the same for Graham Potter, or something like that, like the first 10 or first 18 or whatever. So, like, there's nothing different to Thomas Tuchel, but is Graham Potter able to turn around a ship that's already got like 2/3 filled with water? And I mean, I'm not that clued up on my science anymore, because I just sit here and talk about bloody football every day, but like, I'm pretty sure that when a ship gets that much water in it, it starts to go down and sink slowly, and pretty quickly eventually too. I just think already if game by game we're hearing the same kind of excuses and explanations, regardless of injuries, when you look at the players that Chelsea have got out there on the field, half of them are still European champions. Half of them, do you know what I think? I think the players are getting paid far too much money so that when there really is nothing to play for in the league, which, let's be honest, top 4 is unattainable. These players are on far too much money to even dig in to get results week after week. So isn't it Potter's responsibility to change that mentality? Because there's no one else who's able to do that. They don't really care about how much we slate them on social media or YouTube. I think it gets into the heads of some of them, but it's a minority. So surely it has to be up to Potter to get a tune out of these boys.
This is the thing. Just like I mentioned how Lampard had to do it with his lack of experience, how Tuchel had to do it as soon as he came in. But this is the difference between a Tuchel, and I'm not just saying Tuchel because it's Tuchel and we want Tuchel back. That ship is long gone. He's not coming back, just to clarify. But when you have a manager of a certain caliber or a manager with certain experience, much like Tuchel has, much like even a Poch now has because of his experience at PSG, managing those sort of egos, you learn when you manage those sort of egos and you hit that sort of level. Managers that have actually won and accomplished things, compared to a Graham Potter who, his CV is going to be what happened in Sweden and Brighton. Do you know what I mean? Swansea briefly, but Brighton, where he ended up with a 31.1% win percentage and he's praised for it because it's Brighton. Absolutely okay. Yeah. That's fine. You can't bring that and think that's going to be acceptable at Chelsea. You need to find a solution. This is where I look at Potter and I think he does not know what the solution is. He doesn't have one. If we had someone come in of a caliber,
do we give him time for injuries to come back, or can we do that? Like, is our season just capitulating to a point of like sheer pure embarrassment and just like nothingness? Can we even give the time to allow for the project to unfold in the vision of what Boehly expects? And is there enough time that can be given with the excuse, which is valid excuse, of we've got so many injuries, we are in a crisis? I've seen today that there's like an investigation into the medical team right now to see like what is it that's making these players just constantly drop like flies with a load of flipping Baygon spray or whatever the bloody thing is. Like it's actually a joke, man.
Well, this
like,
is the
amount of injuries we have. Yeah. It's almost funny in the least comical sense. But it's ridiculous. But like, can we afford to give him that time? Do we just both have to sit here and be like, we've got to suck this one up, drink it in. This is what we've got to accept.
Well, this is
I
the
don't know
thing.
if I can do that.
No. And personally, no. But there's conditions here. With that medical situation, that goes back to Todd Boehly. Because again, we sacked the medical director. We sacked the physio over Zoom. We done all sorts, right? Well, not we, but I mean Todd Boehly and the ownership. And apparently what's come out today is there's many players that feel like that shouldn't have happened, and that rapport that they had with the old medical team was at least a sense of they understand us and they know us and we know them, and there's a trust. Now we're hiring a private physiotherapy firm that deals with celebrities to come in and work on these players. There's a difference between celebs and, elite professional footballers. It's just,
this ain't the Golden Globes, mate. It's the Premier League.
This is the thing. When it comes to time, it comes to, do we stick with this? Do we stick with Potter for now? Look, I feel like with the injuries that we have, right, to an extent, yeah, it'd be wise, or it would be reasonable. I feel like it's fair, perhaps, to wait until you get Reece James, Chilwell, Kante back in, which I think are going to be the end of this month. So it's not long, right? Fair enough if we do that, but that's on one condition. You can't drop points against Palace, and if we do, you sure as hell can't drop points against Liverpool.
And I think if we lose both of these games, can he stay?
It's over at that point. You have to sack. You have to. There's no other alternative at that point. Especially
I think
Palace.
I agree with you. I'm trying so hard, but I can't. I think if we lose both of these games, Potter's got to go. He's got to go.
It means you've lost not just 99% of control. You've lost 200% of control. Like, we go above 100 at this point. You've lost all control at that point. And yes, the players will be to blame and all that, but the one change that you can make right now isn't to sack a squad, isn't to terminate contracts. You can't do that. It would be the manager's head, and that's the reality of the game.
Yeah, I saw Matt Law put on Twitter talking about FFP, and is it wise right now for Chelsea to not spend massive in this window, allow players to come back so that Potter can really analyse the squad that he's got and work and see who those players are that do fit in said process. I hate the flipping phrase, but I'm going to use it for want of a better term. Like, is it a good idea to do that? I kind of see Matt Law's point, but like, I think for me, and I think maybe you and a lot of others the same as well, like we probably just got to get our heads out the sand a little bit here, in the sense of this was probably a long time coming. And when you look at the possibility that we had of maybe not having a club a year ago or whatever it was, like, is it that bad? I mean, yeah, it is flipping awful. But like, maybe Enzo Fernandez. Like, is Enzo Fernandez a guy who you think is one of those kind of players that can come in, like, grab the ball by the horns and just be like, right, you know what? This midfield's a mess, but I'm your leader. I might be 21, but I'm a world champion. I'm a leader, and I'm going to take the Premier League by storm. Should we do that, or should we just not spend, and then in the summer we can have that proper car boot sale, and then bring a load of flashy, nice new toys home?
I mean, this is the thing. How far deep are we willing to sink? Because the impact can be made now in January. We are in a window. If there is a possibility to get in an Enzo, I would do it. Personally, I would do it. Because it's Enzo. Some people are going to say, well, yeah, he's only had one good season, maybe not even a full season. But that quality is exactly what we've been screaming for in this Chelsea team. And not just defensively as well. Those attributes is kind of what we need in midfield. And let's have it right. The midfield and our right-back situation are key right now. Like, those are the areas that we absolutely need to focus on. And if that's not going to be focused on in this window, then we got to wait and see what happens by the end of the season. And then, in the summer, maybe we can go and get whoever we need to get. But where are we going to finish by then? That's the key.
I think we're probably going to finish 10th. If
You
I'm
going with
honest,
10th?
I think the most... Yeah, I think so. I think the most realistic outcome from this, I think we've debated this really well, by the way. I think between the two of us, I think we both agree that if we lose the next two games, it's just like, it's incomprehensible to see him remain in the job simply because of the sheer outroar and outcry that would happen as a result of the capitulation of a fan base and just toxicity in the stands. I think that has to happen. If that's the case, and then who would it be? Poch, Zidane, Gallardo, the Argentinian who probably doesn't speak too great English. Like, I don't know, but I can't handle it any longer if we lose the next two games. But I do think, as this season plays out, I don't see us spending big on immediate game changes in January. I don't think we're going to do that. So I do think it's going to be up to injuries coming back and just hoping that we can sort out this, either whether it's luck, jinxes that some people like to say, because you and I talk about certain players in a match preview, mate, we gone and gave him a broken leg or whatever we've done. I don't know what it is, but something's got to give, guys. And I want to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Younes, it's been amazing to have you on, mate. Where do you think we're going to finish in the Premier League, and are we going to lift our third Champions League? Let's just round it up on that.
I don't know. Who are we getting in as an interim? John Terry?
I'd love to see why doesn't John Terry come in with Graham Potter for the first team? Just be there, present in the dressing room game by game. Give Graham a little pat on his shoulder or a stroke on his bonce or something. Like, we need something Chelsea in that dressing room right now. There's a lot of players who love Chelsea, but there's just not enough there. And I think Graham Potter is on the thinnest of Swedish lake ice right now. And I've been there before, and I've seen the ice sometimes. If it ain't freezing, you ain't ice skating. And right now, he's about to go through with the sharpest of blades out of Chelsea Football Club. In my opinion, he's 2 games away. If we don't get a result against Palace and Liverpool, I think it's curtains. But yeah, mate, thank you so much for being on.
Hey, no problem.
If you guys enjoyed this, make sure you go and check out Younes' channel. Absolutely brilliant creator. One of, if not the best out there. And hit the like button if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. And yeah, roll on Sunday. Bloody hell.